What's going on, everybody? Patrick Auger, Matthew Wells here for the Body Lock, and we're talking about cage grabs and point deductions. Yes, that's right. At UFC Vegas 20, we did have Mayra Bueno Silva versus Montana De La Rosa. Bueno Silva went for a cage grab, prevented the takedown, and the referee, Jerin Valel, immediately took a point. And it ended up playing a pretty big factor because it was a majority draw with one judge scoring at 28-27 for Bueno Silva, the other two 28-28, but it essentially cost Bueno Silva the fight. Now, the big question here is that I've seen a lot of people talk about, and we're going to talk about today, is should it have been an immediate point deduction? So, Mr. Wells, I'll let you have the floor first. What do you think? Point deduction or no?
So this is where I think we have a flaw in the rules of MMA, okay? Because this rule in particular, as it's written right now, does say that, if a fighter grabs the fence and it prevents like a major, and it has a major effect in the fight, then yeah, the ref should take a point. The issue that I have with that is points mean so much, especially in a 3-round fight in this 10-point must system in MMA. If you take 1 point away, we have a majority draw situation, just like that. Like you're instantly thinking about, we're probably looking at a draw here, depending on how the rest of the fight plays out. It's just unfortunate because I think the better option would be, especially on the first time, if it's the first offense, like it was here, and yes, it was egregious, it did prevent a takedown. If it's the first offense, I think you should award position. And the reason I believe that is because look at the rule, how it's written right now. It says if a fighter grabs the fence to prevent a takedown or whatever have you and ends up in a favorable position. So let's say if she ended up on top of Montana there, not only does she get a point taken, but she gets the position reset. So why is it not the other way for the fighter? Like, let's say you grab the fence and you still get taken down after the fence grab. Okay, why are you just not awarding the position, or not necessarily get all the way taken down, but it kind of stops it and the ref was like, hey, runs in, is like, let go of the fence, and they still don't let go. Whatever, however it may play out. Just award position. You can stop the fight there and be like, hey, you do that again, I'm gonna take a point. Okay, let's get back to it, but you're starting back on the mat here because you still need to reward the fighter that got wronged in that situation. I just think taking a point is way too harsh, man. I just think it's way too harsh in a 3-round fight.
So yeah, especially the way the rule is written now, right? I think Valel did do what he needed to do because of the way the rule is written. Yeah. I'm with you there. In terms of what it should be, here's my counter argument to that, and then I'll let you have a rebuttal to this. But for me, when it comes to grabbing the fence, it's a blatant foul, and it's essentially cheating in my mind, right? If you have a groin shot, you have an eye poke, those things can happen. You're going for a punch, or you're trying to keep range, or go for a kick, you accidentally hit the groin. Those can be accidental. And we've seen it in situations, right, where you get warned for a couple groin strikes or one groin strike and then point taken on the next. Same with eye pokes. It happens. That makes sense to warn for those. And then if you do it again, okay, you lose a point. For a cage grab, there is no situation ever that a fighter should grab the cage. That is not, in an ideal world, the cage doesn't have holes big enough that a fighter could actually use their toes or their fingers to grab it, to use it for any sort of leverage. You should never be grabbing the cage at any time. So for me, when I look at this rule and this type of foul, it's okay, you've just committed a blatant foul. And there's no reason you can say you accidentally grabbed the cage out of reaction, but you should know training for these fights that you, again, just like any other rules of headbutting or kicking a downed opponent, kneeing a downed opponent, that's just straight up illegal. You can't do that. So I actually think that a point is warranted because we've seen cage grabs in the past where nothing's happened, right? Where it maybe prevents a takedown or at least makes the takedown harder, and you hear a ref say, don't grab the cage. Not even a hard warning. Position's not given or anything like that. I think this sends a clear message that, hey, that's cheating. You cannot grab the cage. If you grab the cage for any reason, you've essentially cheated. You need to lose a point. I think it meets that threshold for being an immediate point deduction because there's no accident involved whatsoever. That's my counter argument. What say you to that?
I say that grabbing the fence to prevent a takedown is not nearly as egregious as getting kicked in the nuts straight on, getting eye poked repeatedly, and not having points taken. So the balance is just not there in this rule set, because we see multiple warnings given for groin shots, multiple warnings for eye pokes. It's just the immediate point deduction for grabbing the fence when nobody gets hurt in that situation. Like you're just talking about, hey, a position change occurred here, or prevention of a position change occurred here. Reward the position and let's get back to action. Now, the grabbing the fence thing, like to your point, I think it's accurate. Yeah, it's there's no situation where you would just grab it, except for it's really just a reactionary thing, right? When you're about to get taken down against the fence and you're like trying to think of what you can do to stop it. Oh, like some people you see more often than not, when they're against the fence, they'll kind of use their arm to kind of brace against the fence. And then sometimes they may grab it a little bit on the way, but then they remember I'm not supposed to grab this and they kind of let it go. So that's one thing where it's just kind of like a reactionary thing. Like, what can I do to prevent this sort of thing? It's not as bad as, let's say, if you were the fighter pushing your opponent against the fence, trying to get like a body lock and grab and, clasp your hands together behind the back or something like that. The most egregious example of a fence grab there would be grabbing the fence to prevent your opponent from moving anywhere. Like we see that a couple of times where, the ref will come in and slap the hand down or something like that. That's more egregious than preventing a takedown for me, because you are literally stopping your opponent from, getting out of a bad situation, so to speak, right? And you can kind of like pin them there by grabbing them or by grabbing the fence. That's more advantageous in my opinion. Obviously, I'm not a fan of either one. I think that, something needs to happen, but a whole point for the first infraction is just too harsh for me, man. I just can't get over that. And like you said at the very top, it cost the fight, man. Bueno Silva lost the fight or didn't lose. Well, technically she did. Like she gets a draw, so she doesn't get a win. I mean, in some people that's a loss. Some people's eyes that's a loss. And also depending on how they get paid out at the end of the day, they lose. So
yes.
Yeah.
No, they do lose their win bonus. That's true. If it's a draw, fighters don't get their win bonus. At least it's basically at the promotion's discretion at that point. But,
right.
I mean that's a good point about the damage. Again, part of where I'm coming from with this, but I understand what you're saying there too. And part of where I'm coming from this is that we've seen a couple of times, right, where fighters think they can get away with the little fence grabs to prevent the takedown or kind of, push themselves a certain direction if they're trying to get up from something. And in this particular situation, it's first round. They're both fresh. You're right. Probably not that egregious. You could reset. It's not a big deal. In second or third round wars where your cardio is being tested and you go for that final takedown and then they stay up, that's a huge game changer in my opinion in terms of how the fight can go. And just again, because it's just blatant, at least with an eye poke or a groin shot, the majority of the time it's a fighter just missed a kick or missed, trying to do something with a feint, or there are some instances there where it's generally not blatant, where somebody goes and just like, hey, I'm going to poke you in the eye, or just straight nut shot. So there's a little bit of leeway there, but you're right. In terms of actual damage to a fighter, those are far worse than, yes, I was tired and I couldn't get someone down, or I'm fresh in this case and I couldn't get someone down. And to your point, in costing her the fight, you look at De La Rosa's eye. I'm pretty sure if that had gone to round 4, that would have been done. I'm not sure she would have been cleared by a doctor. So it's a tough situation to debate. Let us know in the comments how you feel about cage grabs and other fouls. Should cage grab be an immediate point deduction, like I'm saying? Should it be just a position reset, as Matt's saying? What about groin shots? What about eye pokes? Let us know how you feel about the situation and the fight itself in the comments. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe if you haven't done that already, and the notification button so you know when we're dropping new videos. With that in mind, I guess we'll leave it with this. Matt, do you think we will ever see adjustments to the rule set on fouls, especially with how crazy the rule sets can be with different states adopting different rule sets and all that?
Yeah, of course. I think we're still very much in the infancy of MMA rules on a lot of things. So yeah, I expect changes to come from this. Hopefully at some point we get away from the 10-point system and go something that's more, beneficial to mixed martial arts. So, if you do that, then yeah, maybe you can keep a 1 point immediately for a fence grab if you switch to a different point system. In this current system, it just doesn't work for me. Ideally, like if it was like the third round, like you mentioned, and it's like the second time, okay, take a point then. And then it also reward position. I just don't like the fact that if the shoe's on the other foot, you get to take the fighter that committed the foul off of the other person and then reset position when there's no sort of comparable action for the fighter that gets wronged. So it's just, there's a lot of little things like this, I think, in the rules, mainly one that it's not unified. It's not unified. There's rule sets in different states, and it's just like, that's where we need to get first. We need to get everybody on the same page for rules. And then we can go from there, adjusting things like this.
Yeah, no, I can only hope that we end up with a unified rule set, some clear definitions on fouls, and we continue to grow as a sport. We upgrade that rule set as well, because nobody likes to see this type of fight end in a draw because of a point deduction. I think we could both agree on that.